Hello, my name is Rich Welch, Head of Documentary at AFTRS, and we're thrilled to be partnering with the Antenna Selects on the screening of The Painter and the Thief. It's my pleasure to welcome the director, Ben Rees, and one of the subjects from the film, artist Barbora Kysilkova. So welcome, both of you.
Thank you very much.
Hello.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Before I begin, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land. So I'm actually speaking to you from Darawal land, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. So Benjamin and Bora, welcome and congratulations. Together you've created such an engaging and surprising and intimate film. And I understand you're about to have your premiere in Norway. Benjamin, I think that's for yourself, because Bora, you couldn't travel. Is that later today, Benjamin?
Yes, that's correct. In the Norwegian Film Festival. Yeah.
Fantastic.
And it's a physical festival, so that's great.
Happening in the flesh.
Yeah, that's correct.
So I'm going to begin, Benjamin, with yourself. I've read that you initially were attracted to a story about the criminality in the art world, and you'd envisaged the film to be a short 10-minute documentary looking into this sort of subject. And yet the film, The Painter and the Thief, has gone on to become a feature-length documentary that won the World Cinema Award at Sundance and is screening all around the world, and taps into universal themes of the human condition, such as self-worth, sense of place, physically, spiritually, rehabilitation, and ultimately redemption. So I suppose I wanted to ask first and foremost is how you can tell me how that story initially evolved from such a small and humble beginnings to such big universal themes.
So it's correct. I was researching art robberies, and this story was on the front page of the Norwegian newspapers. So reading about it, I thought it was very fascinating because Barbora was not a famous or well-known painter in Norway. And then I got the information that she had approached the thief in court and asked if she could do a portrait of him. And I thought that was a really good setup and premise for a short documentary. So we were very, very fortunate because one of Barbora's friends had filmed a lot. So Barbora was well documented before I came along. And we also had a lot of archival footage from the actual court court meeting. So that was the beginning, thinking that this is going to be a short documentary. And then I saw that these two people, Barbora and Karl Bartel, were so fascinating. They had their emotions on the outside. And I had so many questions. There were so many kind of unanswered questions, so many things I was very curious about. So that was kind of the driving motor for the story. And when I began filming, they had met each other 4 times, and I knew nothing where the story might end up. So after one twist and turn and a plot point, I thought that it's going to be maybe a 30 minutes project, and then it just grew and grew, and new turning points happened, surprising things, and then it ended up we ended up filming for 3 years, and it became what you have just seen. So it was not what we could plan for at all, but that's the really joy of documentary filmmaking, when you're making a story in present tense and just filming what happens.
Absolutely. And was there a time in that film, especially in the early days, where you realized you had something very powerful here, very universal, that could kind of transcend Norway and transcend Europe, go all around the world?
I think the most kind of crucial point in the filming process, where we really understood that this is going to be something more than a short documentary, was when Karl Bartel saw himself painted for the first time in the film. And that was just such a big surprise. You know, this criminal tattooed guy with the snitchers are a dying breed tattoo on his chest, tearing up and crying when that painting was revealed. And I thought that moment was like that's what I love about documentary films and trying to capture scenes like that, because it's so authentic. It's so many things that that's going on at the same time, and I think that my goal is always to try to get access, to build up trust, to get access to really crucial moments of people's lives, because in those moments, then the situation they are in are more important than me being there with the camera. For example, when Carl Bertil sees himself painted, and then they forget about me, and then we can capture something that's really really complex with a lot of nuances, and it's so much going on in that scene, and it's a kind of total visual thing that's going on, so it really fits the film medium, I think, as well. So yeah, that was a real turning point in the making of this film.
That seems like a good place to bring in yourself, Bora. You're coming from Sweden, is that correct?
No, I'm originally from Prague, Czech Republic.
Oh no, I mean right now you're joining us from Sweden.
Oh yeah, right now, of course, yes. Europe is quite a small country as itself, so yeah, I'm in Sweden.
So just talking what Benjamin was just talking about, that one scene, were you expecting that reaction when?
Well, you know, that's like basically as if you would ask me, so did you expect that in daily life that this or that happens? Of course, you never know what the situation brings, but definitely this moment where Bertil comes to my studio and sees this painting, this is a moment that does not happen every day. If it happens maybe twice in a lifetime, it's more than enough. So that was just such a powerful moment that I really will never ever lose from my memory. And indeed, what Benjamin said, that when somehow the situation is bigger than life at the moment, then the camera is just being forgotten. But I have to admit that I very, very often just forgot that there was camera around me. It's probably also due to the fact that Benjamin and also the photographer Christopher Kumar are both such very sensitive and careful people that they really disappear within few minutes after the camera starts to roll. So basically, you really just go on as you would anyway. I mean, I was just anyway painting, whether there was a camera or not. But if I may just say one more thing about this scene where Karl Bertil sees himself painted. For me, that was, of course, on many levels, very emotional moment. First of all, the human interaction here with such a tough guy, which obviously at that day was not in his best condition. And then also, of course, for me as a painter, to have such reaction on my work is in general is something that, I mean, it doesn't pay the rent, but it gives you such a strong feedback that I really understood that what I'm doing makes sense, and it does something to the person who sees the art. So that was just totally mind-blowing moment.
Sorry, apologies. So mind-blowing for both of you by the sounds of it.
Yes. And I think that was also one of the one of the first stamps that kind of proved that Bertil and me really have very special friendship here.
And before I go back to Benjamin, I just want to ask, Bora, you were filming and recording some of these scenes before Benjamin came on board, including, and especially you recorded the audio in the courtroom. Can I ask why you were recording this stuff? Were you expecting someone like Benjamin to come along and say,
sure,
hey, make a film?
Yeah, I'm a fortune teller. I can see the future. No, of course not. What Benjamin mentioned, that there was some footage from before Benjamin stepped in, that was due to my dear friend here in Norway, or there in Norway. Her name is Merete Morken Andersen. She's a Norwegian writer, exquisite writer. And at that time, she was working on a big biography about one Norwegian female writer, Amalie Skram. And Merete was then collecting a lot of material about creativity. And it ended up that I actually was working in her atelier that she gave me to use for a long period of time. And then meanwhile, she just came along with the camera and started to interview me, started to film how I started painting, the whole process of painting. And that's how we got, for example, the footage of the Swan Song being painted and other more works. And then with the audio recording from the court, that's for the basic reason that my Norwegian back then was even worse than it is now. And I just needed to make sure that I won't miss something important. So I illegally, I made the sound recording. It was hidden in my bag. And just so that then my partner could help me to translate what was being told in the court.
And Benjamin, for yourself, that was a wonderful gift, I imagine, when you found this out.
It was also because that we didn't know that it was recorded, because Barbora was planning to, she was like recording the trial, but this was happening in the lunch break or a break in the beginning. It was a break there. So the audio recorder was left in with your stuff where you sat. So that's why it's pretty bad recording as well. So I was so happy when I listened to it, and it's actually with some adjustment, it's possible to hear what you're saying. And that was really too good to be true, to come to a project where one person has photographed this one song when it was made, filmed the exhibition. We have surveillance footage in HD filming the robbery, and also the trial was audio recorded, so Barbora could paint the drawings to what happened there. So it was too good to be true.
It almost sounds like this is the better part of the Big Brother aspect, or the, you know, it can be something positive about being watched all the time.
And was that Bora's paintings? Did you paint the scenes for the courtroom, or was that?
It was the drawings I made, yes.
And that was, am I correct? And that's the only scene in the whole film you use that device, Benjamin?
That's correct, yeah. Since it's Barbora's perspective, we see the world, it felt natural that she was gonna put her personal touch on the courtroom drawings.
I would not allow any other artist to do that.
Yeah. Very fair. And that's actually a good shift, actually, about point of view, Benjamin, because you play with structure in the film quite very deliberately, I'd say. It was funny because just before the film shifts, I actually was finding myself somewhat questioning or wondering about the balance or the imbalance of power. And right at the time, pretty much just before it shifts to the caption coming up saying the thief. And that was the point when I realized, oh, hang on, we've only actually been formally introduced to the painter. And you just shift everything 180. And I just wondered, like, how did this come about? Was that something during the filming that you made this decision, or was it something in the edit that you made this decision?
We wanted to show the world from both point of view, but it was in the editing room we found a technique of how to do it, and also shifting and jumping back in time. The reason why we do that is, of course, to get a better understanding of Karl-Bertil, to really show who he is. I think it's important to see the world from his point of view. And it's such a cliche to only follow the artist. That's what most films like this with an artist and a muse does. So I think it was to kind of break the rules a bit, break the what you're expecting. But also, I like, you know, when it's a lot of plot in this film, you know, a story that moves forward, always ask the question, what will happen next? What happens when you change perspective and then also jump back in time is that you ask the question, why did it happen? And I think that those two ways of asking questions will be more kind of intellectual stimulating to the story. And the themes we are exploring here, that's what we humans do in order to be seen and appreciated, and what it takes of us to see others and help others. And I think that to jump back and forth in time and change perspectives, that also adds new layers and complexity to how we explore the themes in the film. So that's the main reasons why we do it.
And Bora, can I ask, were you aware that this is what Benjamin was doing while he was filming, that he was filming both points of view?
Honestly, I did not, I don't want to now sound, I don't want to be misunderstood, but I did not really care. I mean, it was not my job to care or to be so much aware of what Benjamin was doing. As I have already said, due the very big carefulness and sensitivity of Benjamin, and quite immediate trust of me, and I think of Bertil as well, that Benjamin got really right away. So I did not feel like I need to be always informed about what is happening around. I mean, Benjamin always was telling me things, and I even had to stop him sometimes. Like, I don't need to know these things, just you do your work as I do my work. I mean, I fully trust you. And I guess Bertil, I know that Bertil definitely completely trusts Benjamin as well. So we just let him do his thing.
And for both of you, actually, I'm curious, there's the scenes, it's interesting because we've shifted the points of view back and forth a couple of times. And then there's the scene where Bora introduces Bertil and Bertil introduces Bora's background and almost tells us about the childhood or the life before we met them in the film. And I'm just wondering how that came about. Was that because Bora, yourself and Bertil had already discussed this before Benjamin coming on? Or was it something, Benjamin, that you worked with them both in terms of writing these sections and got them to, I suppose, perform them in a way?
I asked them to kind of interview each other to get a better understanding of it. And I think that the reason we use it in the film is I try to find a kind of a form to kind of show how it is to become friends, and then you kind of notice these small details of each other. So it's for me, it's kind of friendship scenes. But I think that voiceovers in films can be really cheesy sometimes. I think voiceover in films works the best when it's a bit associative. So the way I interviewed both Barbora and Karl-Bertil was almost like psychoanalysis. I didn't kind of look them in the eyes. We kind of sat in a really comfortable position. They kind of looked outside the window, and then I just asked them questions. What do you remember, or what does Bertil like? Like, do you have any details, specifics about his character? Like questions like that. So that's how it came. Also, kind of my favorite quote in the film from Karl-Bertil: "She sees me very well, but she forgets that I see her too." And that was that quote came up through that kind of interview. The kind of psychoanalysis inspired associative interview. So the reason we do it is, of course, also that I think it's much better that they tell about each other, because then they also reveal a lot about themselves. Like, which details do they see in the other person? And of course, this is so crucial for the film. It touches upon the thematics of the film. How what we do in order to be seen and appreciated, and what we see in others, yeah, so that's the reason why. But it was so much fun to make, and I think we had really long versions of it as well, like almost 10 minutes voiceovers there, because there were so many details. Bertil saying that Barbora had a really old iPhone he was so annoyed with, and a lot of details that didn't make it in the cut, but it was a pleasure editing.
Product placement.
They were sponsors, informal sponsors. And Benjamin, how long, because the film was, if I'm correct, it was 3 years to shoot and over 300 hours of footage, I think I read. Were you in the cutting room straight away, or did you finish filming and then go into the edit?
So we edited for 8 months. So that was done while filming the kind of last parts and scenes of the film. Mm-hmm. So we did edit while filming as well. So and did the last interviews and last scenes. So we were editing while filming, yes.
And can I ask, did you show Bora and Bertil any early versions of the film or any early cuts? I think I've read somewhere that Bertil's only watched the film once. Is that correct?
Yeah, he watched kind of early rough cut of the film, but he didn't want to see the whole film back then, and then he watched it when it was finished. And Bertil is very proud of the film, but it's also very tough for him to watch. So when he was interviewed by Vanity Fair, he got the question how it was like to watch the film for the first time, and his answer was horrible. I've only seen the film once, and I'm never going to see it again. The only reason why I'm going to see the film again is if Benjamin makes an audio commentary track, and I have done that. So yeah, so that was Bertil's reaction. Barbara, you can tell a bit about how it was like for you watching it, and when did you see it?
Yeah, I actually have seen the movie also just once. Or maybe 1.5 times. But I also want to say that here and there, Benjamin showed me some scenes also because, and that was very, very crucial for both me and Bertil at the beginning of the process, where Benjamin assured us both that if there is any scene that we disagree with having on the movie, Benjamin will respect that and remove that scene. If there's something we're not comfortable about. So I'm saying this just to really show how Benjamin managed to get our trust and did not use it against us at all. So I saw the film first time not like fully finished, meaning like there was no post-production and the gorgeous soundtrack wasn't there yet. The music wasn't there yet. And I watched it together with Øystein, with my partner, at home. So that was, of course, something totally different. Then when a few months later, we arrived to Sundance. And at the very first day of the festival, which was the world premiere of the movie, and there suddenly you sit in a loaded cinema of I don't know how many hundreds people there, and you suddenly realize that all these people came here voluntarily to spend their money and time on watching your story. So suddenly I got very, very insecure, and I kind of just wished to become invisible and to disappear. But then as the end was coming of the movie, and then we're running the closing titles, and suddenly you realize that the whole cinema is giving a huge applause and huge like positive response. So then I understood that this film probably is having potential to forward some quite essential message to those who want to hear it or see it. That was magical moment. But honestly, I feel sort of reluctant watching the movie again. Somehow I still have problems with seeing myself or hearing myself. It's still something I have a lot to work with.
And just to add to that, what you said about rebuilding up a trust with a film, like for example, when Carl Bertil was going to rehab, he bought heroin on heroin on the way to rehab. The day after we shot that scene, Bertil called me and said, "You can't use that in the film. It's I was on drugs. It was." I don't want that to be revealed in the film. And I told Bertil I totally respect that because, if you don't want to have it there, I will take it away. The next day after that, Bertil called me back and said, "You have to use that in the film. It's so important that we show the ugly truth of drugs." From that point on, he was sure he wanted to show that in the film from that the day after the day he said that he didn't want to have it there. So that was kind of how the process went on. We discussed it a lot, and after that scene, Bertil was comfortable to have everything in the film. But it says a lot about kind of how the process is going. And I think that to get access and film so vulnerable moments when people even are on drugs during filming, of course, I'm going to respect if they don't want to have that scene in the film. But I think that to have that agreement also made it possible to to make the film we made today and get that kind of access.
And with that, I'm going to ask about the end of the film and the painting at the end. And it's a question for both of you in different ways, which is obviously it's the portrait, self-portrait almost, Bora and Bertil. I'm just wondering, for Bora, what did the painting represent for you?
That's a question for me?
Yes.
What does it represent for me, or to me? Well, first of all, if I could, I would not say a word. You know, I kind of, and I don't mean to sound arrogant or anything. It's just I prefer not to give some kind of like a user's manual to my paintings, because I have witnessed how people have such strong ability themselves to find their things in the painting. And even if you have one painting and you have 5 viewers, then you have actually 5 different feelings about the painting, or 5 different stories of what the painting is or is not. But of course, I understand that this painting is, this very concrete painting is creating questions, and I feel obliged to answer somehow. So first of all, it's, you might have seen in the movie that I was planning first to use Bertil with his, at that time, girlfriend, which was not at all important, the fact that they were coupled. That was more about the simple fact that there is a situation between 2 human beings where one is wondering whether the other human being is alive. The painting is called Heartbeat. The Painter and the Thief / Heartbeat. And it's a reference to my older painting called Heartbeat, where you see a person leaning on chest of the other person, listening whether there is a heart beating or not. And I don't have to kind of remind you that there were countless times when we all wondered whether Karl Bertil's heart is beating. Before I started to make the painting, so they split up. Karl Bertil with this lady, they split up, they broke up. And I just realized that I am going to put myself in there for 2 reasons. First reason was I felt that I am exposing Bertil in my paintings, and I kind of felt it's time to expose myself as well. And as I said, I did wonder many, many days, and actually almost every day, whether Bertil's heart is beating. So since I am the creator, so I allowed myself to do what I wanted to do. So I put myself into the painting. And also maybe to state that sometimes friendships might be longer lasting than intimate relationships.
Thank you. And for Benjamin, for yourself, choosing to end the film, and it was beautiful how you did that, by the way, from the transition from the tattoo to the painting, then the pull out. Did you know that was the end of the film when you shot that?
When I saw that Barbora was painting in herself in that painting, I immediately knew that was going to be the ending of the film. And thank you for the compliment. It's a bit of a reference to Vertigo, Hitchcock, at the gallery scene there. And I think that I like that the film has sort of an open end to it as well. And I hope that the film can ask a lot of questions that's both kind of emotionally engaging and intellectually stimulating. And I don't want to kind of interpret the film or give an answer to it, but I hope that the film asks some questions that will leave the audience think about the film some days after watching it, hopefully.
No, I think it definitely does that. It's one of those films where it takes you on a journey, and it's an extremely intimate and surprising film that does leave you with more questions than answers. And I think that's sometimes the most interesting and enjoyable films to watch. So I'd like to just thank you both again for being here this evening where I am, to just have this conversation, but also for making the film, and for Bora for being so open and sharing of your story. I think it's something you both all of you should be extremely proud of. So we'll leave it there, but thank you so much. And congratulations on all the success of the film.
Thank you so much for having
Thank
us
you.
there. It was a pleasure being here. Thank you.
Very nice to talk to you.